Hello everyone. Before I start, allow me to introduce myself first. This is Cirela Bayawa. I'm from Dumanhog, Cebu. I graduated in Consolacion Community College and I am currently working as an ESL teacher in MAED-AS Cebu, located in Mabolo, Cebu City. My topic is all about labor management relations or collective bargaining. So here are the things that I'll be presenting. First, let us define what is labor relations or collective bargaining. Second, explain the types of collective bargaining. The third, discuss the importance of collective bargaining. And the fourth one, explain the features and process of collective bargaining. And next is, as well as the functions and issues of collective bargaining, and the conclusion. So let's define what is labor management relations. Labor management relations, it is the relationship and interaction between employers and employee. It is how employers deal with the employees. It is the process between employers and employee, management and unions, in order to make the decisions in organizations. So the decisions taken refer to the wages, working conditions, working hours, and safety of work. It is where in which working people, through their unions, negotiate contracts with their employees to determine the terms of employment, including the pay, benefits, hours, leave, safety policies, ways to balance of work and family, and many more. Employee and labor relations is committed to promoting respectful, effective, fair, and professional relationships. Next, let's define what is collective bargaining. Collective bargaining, it is a process between employers and employees to reach an agreement regarding the rights and duties of people at work. It is a process by which employees use unions to negotiate for better terms. An example, when workers in a factory negotiate for higher pay through their workers' union. I will include also collective bargaining in the Philippines. It is where the parties to fix and administer terms and conditions of employment which must not be below the minimum standards fixed by law and set a mechanism for resolving their grievances. It is a sort of collective negotiations and agreements by which trade unions negotiate with employers in behalf of their members in respect of employees and terms and conditions of employment. So there are types of collective bargaining. First is a conjunctive or distributed bargaining. Second, cooperative or integrative bargaining. The third one is productivity bargaining. And the fourth one is composite bargaining. Let's talk about conjunctive or distributed bargaining. It is the common type of bargaining and involves zero-sum negotiations. In other words, one side is winner and one side is loser. Example, occurs when labor and management are in conflict or there's an issue and the outcome is win-lose situation. Otherwise, distributed bargaining is defined as negotiation process by which one party benefits at the other's expense. This usually refers to the distribution of income in the form of higher wages, higher bonuses, or higher financial benefits. Simply put, anything related to the transfer of money. In this type of bargaining, the trade union needs to have enough market power to aim the negotiation. The employer will want to pay as little in wages, yet, in order to convince them to pay more, will want to pay as little in wages. Yet, in order to convince them to pay more, the trade unions need enough members to provide a significant incentive. In other words, a trade union that has 100% of the employer's workforce has significant power should they still strike. It would cause severe disruption to the employer. Consequently, any distributed bargaining will be skewed significantly in favor of the unions. Second, let's talk about cooperative or integrative bargaining. This involves negotiation of an issue in which both the parties may gain or at least no party loses. For example, it occurs when two sides face a common problem, so both parties seek a win-win situation. So integrated bargaining in whereby both sides aim to the benefit in what is seen as win-win situation bargaining. Both parties may bring together a list of demands by which an agreement is reached that benefits both parties. To put in another way, integrated bargaining involves both parties considering the other's point of view, wants, needs, fears, and concerns. As a result, both parties either lose or gain by the same amount. For example, unions may advocate for greater levels of staff training. Now, this may cost the business more, but it will benefit from greater levels of productivity in the long run. If workers are better trained, they are equally going to be more productive, right? So the business and the union's workers may gain as a result. We can look at the integrated bargaining where both sides lose in order to gain. For example, the unions may be willing to give up yearly bonuses in order to have a higher annual salary. Or alternatively, the union would accept a pay freeze in order to accept better working conditions. So the workers would lose out from the lower real wages. Risk the employer would have to invest in better conditions. The third one, productivity bargaining. It is the type of bargaining where the wages and benefits of workers are linked as a result of the agreement. It is done by the management. When we say productivity bargaining, it involves both parties negotiating around productivity and pay. So unions may higher salaries would boost productivity. However, this is unknown to the business. So targeted orientation bonuses may be suggested or new ways of improving the process. Unions may suggest new ways of organizing the workforce that may increase productivity and therefore they create value to the firm. In turn, employers would look to increase employees' wages as a result. Simply but productivity bargaining is where the two parties to agree to change that would boost productivity in return for higher wages or other benefits. The third one, or the last one, composite bargaining. It is the type of bargaining that workers tend to argue that productivity bargaining increases their workload. It focuses on other issues such as working conditions. These may include hiring and firing practices as well as workplace discipline. Composite bargaining, it refers to the negotiation that focuses on a number of elements that are not related to pay. They are generally related to employee welfare and job security. For instance, it covers factors such as working conditions, policies, recruitment, and disciplinary processes. The aim or the goal is to ensure a mutually beneficial long-term relationship between the employer and the employee. It does this by highlighting issues they have, which may impact this long-term future at the company. Businesses want to retain talent, particularly if they spend time and money training them up. Factors such as workload and working conditions can impact on this long-term relationship. So it is the best interest of both parties to ensure that the employees are happy. The importance of collective bargaining. It is really important to the employees because it develops a sense of self-respect and responsibility. It increases the strength of the workforce. It increases the morale and productivity. It strengthens the trade unions movement. It really feels motivated. It helps in securing a prompt and fair settlement. So which means it is really important to the employees because it allows organized employees to advocate for their needs and define the terms of employment. It is to develop self-respect and self-discipline. It builds positive relationships to others. It has self-respect really start from ourselves. And if we have respect to ourselves, we are being respected by others as well, right? Be kind to yourself. Learn to be assertive. It feels motivated in the way that the employees are highly appreciated by their employers because of their good performance. Otherwise, the needs or importance of collective bargaining is felt due to the advantages it offers to the organization. First is collective bargaining develops better understanding between the employer and the employees. It really provides a platform to the management and employees to be a part of the negotiation table. As such, while the management gains a better and deep insight into the problems and the inspiration of the employers. On the other hand, employees do also become better informed about the organizational problems and limitation. On the other, this is in turn develops better understanding between the two parties. Otherwise, it promotes industrial democracy. Both the employer and employees, who best know their problems, participate in the negotiation process. Such participation breeds the democratic process in the organization. It also beneficial for the both employer and employees. The negotiation arrive at it acceptable to both parties, the employer and the employees. It is adjustable to the changing conditions. A dynamic environment leads to changes in employment conditions. This requires changes in organizational processes to match with the changed conditions, among other alternatives available. Collective bargaining is found as better approach to bring changes more amicably. It also facilitates the speedy implementation of decisions arrived at collective negotiation. The direct participation of both parties, the employer and the employees, in collective decision-making process provides an inbuilt mechanism for speedy implementation of decisions arrived at collective bargaining. It also important to the employer because the responsibility is to resolve issues and concerns inside the workplace, right? So it tends to promote a sense of job security. It opens up the channel of communication between workers and the management. It plays a vital role in settling and preventing industrial disputes. As an employer, it is the responsibility and duties to resolve the issue and concerns inside the workplace. They're the one who settle the issue or concerns to promote a sense of job security and to create peaceful and harmonious relationship with one another. It is really important to conduct a meeting or forum between workers and management so that they will become peaceful and to create a harmonious relationship with one another. Process of collective bargaining. First is the preparation. In the preparation, objectives, choosing, negotiation, team, anticipation of union demands, and organization of a group of workers to represent the employee fraternity. The union's bargaining team is usually selected through the process outlined in the union's constitution and bylaws, while the employer designates the management team. Each team will analyze the current collective bargaining agreement to identify areas they want to improve. Ideally, the local will reach out to community partners, parents, and other stakeholders to seek input on issues for potential proposals. In many companies, agreements have a fixed time scale and a collective bargaining process will be given or review the procedural or sequential agreement when negotiations take place on pay and conditions of employment. The second one is discussion. In the discussion part, in conducting negotiations, we are about to explain more further in terms of one of the most important steps in collective implementing. It's all about negotiations usually take several rounds of bargaining, right? So the union and management sides express the rationale behind their proposals. Some contracts provisions remain predominantly the same from contract to contract, while others, such as salary, are bargained with each contract. The parties may modify some sections, and either side may propose a new bargaining topic, state the law and court cases, determine the mandatory, permissive, and prohibited subjects of bargaining. The next step is the proposal. In this type or process of the third step of collective bargaining, when the union and employer teams reach out a tentative contract agreement, they will review the proposed contract with the respective constituency groups. The union holds a ratification meeting where employees ask questions and offer opinions on the tentative contract agreement. Individuals are then asked to vote on the tentative agreement, usually by secret ballot. A majority of votes determines if the contract is ratified or rejected. The management team generally seeks approval from the school board or other governing body. If both sides ratify the tentative agreement, then the parties have a new or successor collective bargaining agreement. If the tentative contract agreement is rejected by either party, the teams usually return to the bargaining table and continue to negotiate until they reach a new tentative agreement for a vote. And the next step is bargaining. In this type of collective bargaining process, if the parties cannot reach an agreement, state law generally specifies how the dispute can be solved. Usually, the parties can use mediation, arbitration, and/or a strike or lockout to reach an agreement. Strikes or lockouts are infrequent in public education but are allowable in several states. This is a strategic discussion that resolves an issue in a way that both parties find acceptable. It is a way of settling or a way of making joint decisions for those who are making decisions hold different views. And then the last step of the final agreement, it is all about changing or clarifying the contract, or with the agreement of those parties, any section of a ratified contract can be revised during the term of a contract. In many districts, labor and management representatives meet regularly during the term of contract to talk about and resolve issues or concerns, often through an established joint labor management committee. In addition, either at the bargaining table or during the life of a contract, the parties can bargain a memorandum of understanding related to the specific issue. The benefit of that is that it allows the parties to reach an agreement on a new or unforeseen issue that is important to both the union and the employer. Collective bargaining, group and collective action, strength, continuous process, flexible, voluntary, dynamic, power relationship, and bipartite process. It is collective process. The representative of both workers and management participates in bargaining. It is the two-way group process between employees and employers sit together to negotiate terms of employment. It is also a continuous process because it establishes regular and stable relationship between the parties involved. It also includes implementation and administration of the contract. It is flexible and dynamic because the parties have to adopt a flexible attitude through the process of bargaining. It is the steps towards industrial democracy, working together, thinking together, and deciding together. The bipartite process, there are always two parties involved in the process of its no third-party intervention between management and trade union. The negotiations generally take place between the employees and the management. It is a form of participation. Of collective bargaining. Collective bargaining is a process of decision-making and mechanism for belonging the power between the employer and the employee, working together, sharing together, deciding together, and coming together. It helps to promote the cooperation and mutual understanding between workers and management. It establishes uniform conditions for employment. It promotes stability and prosperity. It increases the economic strength of employee and management. It provides fair rate of wages and amenities for workers, promotes prompt redressal of grievances. It provides a solution to industrial sickness. It also provides new methods of employment, regulatory condition. It also provides negotiations are easy if a problem-solving attitude is adopted. This stage comprises the time when what-ifs and supposals are set forth and the drafting of agreements takes place. This is also described as consisting views as a knowledge between the employers and employee. And also, aside from that, it contracts to guide standards, participation in decision-making process. All union members and management must confirm the terms of contract without exertion. Process exists to question managers' authority if members feel something was done unjustly. It gains control of practice. It improves professional relationships, and professionalism can be promoted. Project patients from inadequate and unsafe care. It ensures that have fair pay, good benefits, and safe working condition. Also, the role of collective bargaining for labor market performance. It agrees signed by employers and unions primarily determine wage levels and non-wage working conditions including working time, level arrangement, training, employment protection, and health and safety provisions. Negotiations of contracts by particular firms of employees may increase wages above the rate agreed at higher levels and not part of the collective agreement, although they may be taken into account in the negotiations. The way of collective bargaining influences labor market performance depends on the bargaining strategies of social partners, the structure of product and labor markets, and the nature of collective bargaining institution. The wage distribution and productivity, the sector level data to study the relationship of collective bargaining with wages behind the relationships found the macro level. It is where the way collective bargaining influences labor, and the effect of collective bargaining depends also the structure of the market and the degree of competition. Issues of collective bargaining. Due to the dominance of outsiders in trade unionism in the country, there is multiplicity of unions which are weak and unstable and do not represent majority of the employees. Moreover, there are inter-union rivalries which further hinder the process of collective bargaining between the labor and the management. Since the most of the trade unions are having political affiliations, they continue to be dominated by politicians who use the unions and their members to meet their political ends. There is a lack of definite procedure to determine which union to be recognized to serve as a bargaining agent on behalf of the workers. And also, the typical issues on the bargaining is that include wages, working time, training, occupational health, and safety and equal treatment. The objective of these negotiations is to arrive at a collective agreement that regulate terms and conditions of agreement. Collective agreements may also address the rights and responsibilities of the parties, thus ensuring harmonious and productive industries and workplaces. Enhancing the inclusiveness of collective bargaining and collective agreements is a key means for reducing inequality and extended labor. There are some typical issues of organizational or collective bargaining, which is all about having conflict or issues inside the workplace. It is where the employers, they're the one who settle the issues and concerns so that it can promote peaceful and harmonious relationship. So there are some ways or other instances bargaining issues. That is why the negotiation team should consist of individuals with knowledge of the organization and the skills to be an effective negotiator. And understanding of the working conditions and dissatisfaction with working conditions, it is an important part of this preparation step. Establishing objectives or goals for obtaining and the issues of collective bargaining for the negotiations and reviewing the old contract are key components to this step. The management team should also prepare and anticipate union it demands to better prepare for compromises. Once the group comes to an agreement or settlement, a new contract is written and the union members vote on whether to accept the agreement. So that's it. In conclusion, collective bargaining is a process of negotiation between employers and a group of employees aimed at agreements to regulate working salaries, working conditions, benefits, and other aspects of workers, compensation, and rights for workers. It is also a disagreement is the entire between the employer and the employee and the union. The parties acknowledge that they have fully bargained with respect for all terms and conditions of employment and have settled them for the duration of this agreement. This agreement also ill prior agreements and understanding either verbal or in writing except as provided. So it is agreed that this agreement shall be construed according to its written provisions, without regards to any discussions or negotiations, written or oral, with the parties have had leading to or resulting the execution and delivery of this agreement. It is also, which is not written or executed portion of this agreement shall acknowledge that they have fully bargained with respects to terms and conditions, employment, and have settled them for the duration of this agreement. However, all prior agreements and understanding and concludes all collective bargaining for the agreement to negotiate on matters that develop after entering into this agreement. Any additions, deletions, or changes that are negotiated during and matters that develop entering into this agreement. Any additions for that of understanding on shall become the part of this agreement. The agreement expressed herein in writing constitutes the entire agreement between the parties and no oral statement, and shall add to or precede any of its provisions. The parties acknowledge that during the negotiations which preceded this agreement, each had the unlimited right and opportunity to make proposals with respect to any subject or matter that exercised that right and opportunity to set forth in this agreement. For the conclusion, collective bargaining is a process of negotiation between employers and a group of employees aimed at agreements to regulate working salaries, working conditions, benefits, and other aspects of workers, compensation, and rights for workers. It is also a disagreement is the entire between the employer and the employee and the union. The parties acknowledge that they have fully bargained with respect for all terms and conditions of employment and have settled them for the duration of this agreement. This agreement also ill prior agreements and understanding either verbal or in writing except as provided. So it is agreed that this agreement shall be construed according to its written provisions, without regards to any discussions or negotiations, written or oral, with the parties have had leading to or resulting the execution and delivery of this agreement. It is also, which is not written or executed portion of this agreement shall acknowledge that they have fully bargained with respects to terms and conditions, employment, and have settled them for the duration of this agreement. However, all prior agreements and understanding and concludes all collective bargaining for the agreement to negotiate on matters that develop after entering into this agreement. Any additions, deletions, or changes that are negotiated during and matters that develop entering into this agreement. Any additions for that of understanding on shall become the part of this agreement. The agreement expressed herein in writing constitutes the entire agreement between the parties and no oral statement, and shall add to or precede any of its provisions. The parties acknowledge that during the negotiations which preceded this agreement, each had the unlimited right and opportunity to make proposals with respect to any subject or matter that exercised that right and opportunity to set forth in this agreement. Alright, so thank you so much for watching and listening my presentation. I just really hope that you have learned something about my topic. Have a nice day, everyone.